Welcome to Litigation Corner, where we break down legal topics in an easy-to-understand format. I'm John Martino, and I am the Director of Litigation for Community Legal Services, a no-cost legal aid firm covering 12 counties coast to coast in the middle of Florida. Today we're discussing an issue that affects every single Floridian: housing. In the state of Florida, it is widely recognized that we have an affordable housing crisis. What does that mean? As reported by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, out of 100 extremely low-income renters in the state of Florida, there is only 25 housing units available. That means 75% of low-income Floridians do not have a place they call home. That is staggering, and it also shows you how valuable housing is to people who have it and how devastating it can be to get home and see the eviction notice on your door. Today we're talking about paying rent and talking about the eviction process. Whether you're renting an apartment, house, or condo, knowing your legal rights is crucial. So if you have asked, is this notice on my door legal? Or can I fight the eviction process? Well, we're going to talk about it in this episode of Litigation Corner. Eviction is one of the most terrifying words for many Floridians. The ability to remain housed is core to a person's ability to pursue happiness in this country. And when that is threatened, it can affect every aspect of your life. That is why it is important for tenants to know their rights and for landlords to know what rules to follow. Today we're covering the eviction process. Florida law provides specific guidelines for both landlords and tenants, primarily found in Chapter 83 of the Florida statutes. Understanding these laws can help renters avoid unnecessary legal trouble and protect their rights. In Florida, landlords cannot remove tenants without following a legal process. There are only a few valid reasons for eviction: non-payment of rent, violation of a lease term, or the expiration of the lease without renewal. Each type of eviction comes with specific pre-lawsuit notice requirements. Proper notice must be given by landlords before they can file an eviction lawsuit. For the non-payment of rent, the landlord must provide a 3-day notice, allowing the tenant to pay in that time or vacate the rental unit. Please note that when I say 3 days, that does not include weekends or legal holidays. Also, I want to note, what we're talking about today is mostly about traditional rental units, and housing providers of subsidized housing may have different, longer notice requirements. Also, mobile home parks have special rules under Chapter 723 of Florida statutes. We will likely address the specifics of other housing situations in future episodes. Go into a second possible reason for removal. If a tenant violates the lease, the landlord must issue a 7-day notice, which could be curable, meaning that the tenant has a chance to fix the issue and remain in their property, or incurable, meaning that the renter cannot fix the issue and are required to leave after the expiration of 7 days. Now let's talk about the non-renewal of a lease. For week-to-week rental agreements, landlords must give at least 7 days notice for non-renewal. For month-to-month agreements, landlords must give at least 30 days notice before non-renewal of the lease term. The landlord must also take into account and not cut short a rental period once it has started, meaning that notice provided on May 15th does not necessarily mean that the notice permits them to remove the tenant on June 15th. They would likely not be able to remove the tenant until after June 30th. Now, when we're talking about notices, we are talking about the very beginning of the eviction process. The word eviction actually refers to the legal process filed with the court once the notice period has expired and the tenant has not left the rental unit. An eviction occurs at the end of a court proceeding when ordered by a judge. Landlords cannot take matters into their own hands by locking tenants out, shutting off utilities, or removing personal belongings without a formal eviction order. These actions are considered illegal self-help evictions under Florida law and are considered prohibited practices. If a court case is filed and the tenant proves that the landlord engages in prohibited practices, the judge has the ability to order the landlord to be responsible for at least 3 months' rent. Tenants are protected from retaliatory evictions. If a tenant reports unsafe conditions or asserts their rights, a landlord cannot evict them as retaliation, and retaliation can serve as an affirmative defense when litigating the eviction process. To explain what I mean by affirmative defense, it is helpful to take a step back and understand the eviction timeline. Let's say a rent payment is due on May 1st, and 5 days later no payment is made. The landlord provides the tenant a 3-day notice to pay or vacate. Only after those 3 days can the landlord go to the court and file an eviction case. The complaint will be public record, available to all, including future housing providers. This is why it is so important to avoid the eviction process if you can. Once the case is filed, a summons will be issued documenting the case. The summons will then be served on the resident. Service will take place when they are handed the summons by a process server or deputy sheriff. This is called personal service. Or the summons can be posted on their door, and there must also be a certificate that the document was mailed. Once the paperwork is received, the resident then has only 5 business days to file an answer, along with any affirmative defenses that they may have. It is also important to try to seek the help of an attorney immediately, because it would be best to talk to an attorney before filing an answer. Examples of affirmative defenses to eviction include failure to provide required notice, defective notice, breach of a duty to maintain safe and habitable condition, retaliatory eviction, and waiver of eviction, meaning that the landlord has accepted payment. Remember, if an answer is not filed timely, the case will be lost. Florida has a pay-to-play system, meaning to contest the eviction in court, the resident will have to pay all rent due into the registry, or file a motion to determine rent so the court can decide how much rent should be deposited. Note, the registry is a bank account owned by the court. In addition to depositing the rent already owed, tenants must deposit rent amounts accrued while the case is pending. If the tenant fails to timely deposit back rent and future rent while the case is pending, the case will likely be lost. If motion to determine rent is filed, at the hearing, the judge can decide if there is a reason for the resident to deposit less than the full amount of rent. For example, damage to the rental unit preventing the full enjoyment of the unit. During an eviction case, it is always possible that a resolution can be reached with the housing provider or their attorney. If a resolution is not reached, the case will go to a final hearing where the judge will decide if there are legal grounds that exist to support the eviction, or if there is a reason not to order the eviction. The main goal of the resident throughout the process is to try to avoid the eviction from being filed, and if it is filed, trying to avoid a final order of eviction, which could significantly impact the ability to obtain future housing. Keep in mind, if the judge issues an order of eviction, the sheriff can come to remove you from the property in as little as a day or 2. CLS has a housing unit dedicated to residents navigating this system and a helpline that can field questions about this process same day. In episode 1, we talked about how our helpline and our housing unit help Susan avoid eviction and maintain her housing. Now we're going to turn over to an interview segment called Direct Examination. Thank you for being our first guest.
Of course.
So, Jerika, are you ready for your direct examination?
I'm ready.
Okay. So first, can you just describe what your role is with the organization?
So I am the managing attorney of the housing unit. I manage 6 staff attorneys and 3 paralegals.
And what was kind of the job that you were dreaming of when you grew up?
Growing up, I wanted to be a doctor, specifically a pediatrician. And I knew it would make my parents happy.
So you wanted to be a doctor. Did you have any heroes growing up?
My parents have always been my heroes. I think that their unwavering love and support has shaped me into the woman that I am today.
And you grew up here in Central Florida?
I did.
Yeah.
I actually was born in Plant City, Florida, but then first grade, we moved to Orlando.
Okay. How did things develop that made you want to become a lawyer?
I participated in a law magnet program in high school. So I believe that experience sparked my initial interest. But what really solidified my decision was watching a close family member's experience with the legal system in my early 20s. It wasn't a positive experience. So I decided then that I would try my best to restore this family member's faith in the legal system by being the fierce advocate I wish this family member had 20 years ago.
That's amazing. And I think a lot of people come to community legal services because they want to fight what's going on in the court system, because there's just a lot of unfairness, right? And that's what we're trying to help solve, particularly in housing.
Absolutely.
which is where you are, leading the effort for our firm. So you were a college athlete, which is awesome. I think that's one of my favorite pieces of trivia across the entire law firm is that you were a collegiate athlete. So you played softball. So what do you take from that experience being a collegiate softball player?
Oh gosh, I played softball from the age of 8 until I was 22 years old. So I have a lot of great memories of playing softball over those years. But if I had to say or select my favorite memory or my favorite moment over those years, it would be when I hit a walk-off home run during my senior year of college. We were playing Georgia State in a tournament that was hosted by FSU in Tallahassee. It was the bottom of the 7th. We were down 1 run. There were 2 runners on and there was 1 out, and I was up to bat. And I can't remember the exact count that I had, but I know I had 2 strikes and I hit a rise ball over the fence, walk-off home run.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine a better feeling than that.
It definitely was a special moment. I'll never forget it.
Yeah. Now you're the leader of the housing unit for community legal services. How does that experience being a collegiate softball player, being a shortstop, translate to now being the managing attorney for the housing unit?
Well, playing softball all those years, I definitely learned to lead by example. You can't expect your team to do something that you're not willing to do. I also learned that it's important to select the right personnel for your team and then know how to best use that personnel. You can have the most talented team, but if everybody's in the wrong position, you'll lose.
Yeah, and you see what you were saying as far as like needing to, lead by example, right? In softball, it's right. Sometimes you have to be the person who does the sacrifice bunt, right? And give yourself up and you're out. And here at Community Legal Services, right? Sometimes it's, you're the one who has to take that last minute call for the person who has the eviction hearing the next morning.
Absolutely.
And I know you and the rest of your team do take those kinds of calls.
Mm-hmm.
As a leader for this organization, how do you motivate your staff? What are the things that you try to do to motivate them?
I prioritize praise. You know, I make sure that I let my team know when they've done a good job and how it affects the client as well as the firm.
That's awesome. And how would you describe your management style?
Well, I definitely lead by example. I also set clear expectations, and then I take a step back and I give my team the freedom to do their jobs, as long as the desired results are achieved. You know, we regularly meet as a team, so I'm aware of their progress and I'm able to, you know, provide feedback and guidance regarding any challenges that they may be facing. I also, you know, make sure that I'm there to provide ongoing support as needed. You know, once you settle in, you take the time, you review the trainings, review the statutes, understand what's going on, you can pick it up.
Yeah. So how does the Housing Unit for Community Legal Services actually help the community?
So in the Housing Unit, we defend renters who are facing evictions. We defend renters at informal grievance hearings who are facing termination from certain subsidized housing programs, federally subsidized housing programs specifically. We assist renters with filing lawsuits against the landlords who engage in self-help evictions. We assist plaintiffs, well, some certain plaintiffs and defendants in unlawful detainer and ejectment actions. We defend our seniors who are facing reverse mortgage foreclosures. And we also assist both plaintiffs and defendants in partition actions.
That's a wide variety of services that your unit provides. How do you learn all those different areas?
Well, I think, you know, it's important to take advantage of any trainings that are out there, you know, reviewing the statutes that apply to each areas of housing that we practice, you know, reviewing those statutes on a regular basis, making sure that you are staying up to date with any amendments and changes that may be released. But I think, you know, the more that you practice those areas, you know, it becomes more second nature.
The experience is ultimately what's going to get you to have the information that you need.
Exactly, and to feel more comfortable. Yeah.
Got it.
I think experience is the best teacher.
So what are the main challenges that renters in the state of Florida, and particularly in Central Florida, are dealing with right now?
Well, as rent continues to increase at a higher rate than wages, renters are, you know, living paycheck to paycheck, and they are unable to save for emergencies. So all it takes is one unexpected expense and renters are facing homelessness.
And I also know we have situations right in Central Florida that are actually happening as we record this, where sometimes the landlord, for whatever reason, doesn't pay their bills, and then the city has to take action to close down that place, and it results in dozens of people being unhoused.
Absolutely.
What is the biggest mistake you see renters make? Like, what do they do that ultimately leads them down the path of eviction?
Not reviewing and fully understanding the terms of their lease before signing it.
Yeah.
That can really be detrimental to a renter. A lot of times there are fees in the lease that the renter was not aware of that must be paid in addition to the monthly rent. So a lot of times not knowing about these additional fees and charges, renters aren't able to plan their finances appropriately. And oftentimes it leads to, evictions being filed against them.
Putting ourselves in the shoes of one of those renters who gets an eviction notice, what is the most important thing they can do upon receiving that notice?
Don't ignore it. Try to resolve the violation by the deadline stated in the notice. If for some reason you dispute or you disagree with the violation, I recommend, reaching out to the landlord or the property manager and try to work it out. You'd really be surprised how often these matters are resolved after a simple conversation.
And of course, if that doesn't work, contact the Community Legal Services Helpline.
Absolutely, at 1-800-405-1417.
I'm glad you did it. All right, so we talked about what motivated you to become a lawyer. What's keeping you motivated to do this particular work in the housing field?
Well, I truly believe that everyone is entitled to have access to quality legal services, regardless of your socioeconomic status. So working for a law firm that provides no-cost legal services to low-income individuals, it truly aligns with my core values and beliefs.
Definitely. All right, so this is the fun part.
Okay.
We're gonna get into the lightning round.
I'm ready.
Very important question. Pie or cake?
Definitely cake.
Okay, and what's your favorite type of cake?
It really depends on my mood, but it's either red velvet or strawberry shortcake.
All right, favorite movie?
The Holiday.
Okay. Are you a movie person?
I am, specifically comedies and rom-coms.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, do you have a favorite legal movie?
I do. A Time to Kill.
Favorite athlete?
My nephew.
That's nice.
My nephew. He was an exceptional athlete. He played both baseball and football. He was a quarterback in football, and he played a variety of positions in baseball: pitcher, third base, first base, and the outfield.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. If you could only listen to one musical artist for the rest of your life, who would that be?
Whitney Houston. She's the voice, right?
Yeah. And she helps if you ever need a good cry. She has the songs.
She does.
She has the pipes
I'm
to bring
an
that
R&B
out.
girly, so I'm partial to R&B. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite non-English word? And that could be a Latin word, right? Because we deal with a lot of Latin words. Do you have a favorite non-English word?
It's not Latin, it's French.
Okay.
Bon appetit,
Oh,
because I love a good meal.
yeah, I gotta say, from the Italian-American side, I think manja is definitely one of my favorite words. So getting back to more serious fare, what is the biggest challenge that your unit faces in tackling the affordable housing crisis in Central Florida?
The pay-to-play component of the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act presents an unfortunate hurdle when we are contesting, evictions in general. Renters are required to deposit the alleged or court-ordered past due rent into the court's registry, as well as ongoing rent as it comes due throughout the duration of the eviction, or they waive most of the legal defenses that they have. So when our clients are unable to comply with this requirement, it tends to limit the impact that we can have on their cases.
Yeah, it is a really weird component of the law that is very unique to housing law, right? Like there's no other areas where it's just like, you have to deposit this money if you want to have a defense.
Exactly.
And yeah, that is a unique challenge because a lot, oftentimes they're not going to have it, or by time this eviction has happened, they may have to try to find other housing, right? And yeah, it's a challenge for sure. So for you, what is the best thing about being a legal aid attorney?
Man, I get to advocate for the underdog every single day.
Yeah. There's a power in that, knowing that, you know, you are advocating for the person who really needs the help, who generally speaking can't afford it, and you know, they may have made mistakes, or they may have challenges that are making it hard on them, right, to make rent every month, but they are absolutely deserving of your services.
Absolutely.
Which is awesome.
They've been counted out by people, you know, and I truly like to kind of sweep in like the hero, you know, and, you know, give them hope. I really think what we do gives them hope.
Yeah, I think we all have a little bit of a hero complex in community legal services.
Just a little bit.
So I think that is it. I think we kind of covered this. So the last thing was just, is there anything else that you feel like the people of Central Florida need to know about the housing crisis or community legal services, or any of the work being done?
Well, I think, you know, is what we do at Community Legal Services is important work. I think that, you know, one of the main things that I always tell my clients is, you know, if you are facing a legal crisis, don't wait. Don't wait to act. You know, act as quickly as you can, you know, by reaching out, you know, going on our website, you know, calling our helpline to try to get the help you deserve. The sooner, the better.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Jerika. Thanks for being on our show.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. So remember, the eviction process is complicated. It is important that every tenant know their rights, know how to avoid eviction from being filed against them, and know how to defend against unlawful evictions. If you know someone who has been served with a notice to vacate their rental unit, please have them reach out to the Community Legal Services Helpline at 1-800-405-1417. Community Legal Services is here to help. That wraps up this episode of Litigation Corner. If you have a topic that you'd like me to cover in a future episode, please reach out to us. And remember that when you need help or a friend needs help, Community Legal Services is there for the community. See you next month in the Litigation Corner.